Welcome back to Lamp Doc. We're here with gaffer John Alcantara, and in part one we covered his journey from film school, his first PA job, and climbing the ladder in the lighting department. Now we're getting into the big leagues, the Bob Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown, the challenges of working on Only Murders in the Building, and how New York's unique energy and obstacles shape the way movies get made. Let's jump in.
My company has Vortex 8s, not the soft, the originals, Vortex 4s, full complement of light mats, Stereotubes, Helios tubes, Roscoe dashes, Felix, the whole Q series.
Right.
The little G3 Lecos, which I love because, there's nothing on the market with that color spectrum in that size.
Yeah.
And it's very helpful, when you just need to put something small and either focus it or just kind of bounce it, It's a very versatile little light. What else do I own? Hopefully soon, Vortex 24s.
Right.
We have those on sale, so this is a coincidence.
I have a couple on hold. I'm waiting for MBS to give me some money.
So in that vein, when you're starting to think about fixtures that are new, that are coming out, what technical things are you looking for in new products so that you can fill out that truck package?
I think I'm noticing a shift, almost like it's going backwards again, but with LED, where now the manufacturers are realizing the market share of soft panel lighting has kind of been filled by a lot of different vendors. And now we're finding ways to go bigger and brighter bicolor if you can get it full spectrum on a sharper, light, whether
Right.
it be a Q10, any of the aperture, the Nanlux stuff. We're realizing that there's a world that we have to fill where it's soft and hard.
Right.
And, whether that's however the back end is, and you have any accessories where you're changing lenses or, add-ons. I think the way I look at it is the way I came up in the business, which is you had Fresnels and HMIs, whether it be PARs or Fresnels in the HMI side. And then you had Kinos or any soft homemade, light boxes or wagons or stuff like that, traditional stuff. I think you need both of that to round out your truck. So when I looked at probably lights, I'm looking for that same balance as when I was coming up, which is you have all your soft lighting. I think in a city like New York, having lightweight fixtures are very important because you don't have the flexibility of just being able to put anything into a ceiling if you have to hang. For me, I don't look for full spectrum in a larger, harder source. I want to kind of replace daylight in like an object. So
on larger sources, you got the sun that's kind of filling in all the gaps anyway. So you're looking to really expose for the most part.
Right.
And so I totally understand that because with HMIs, they're sort of all over the place. You got to gel them and color temper and whatnot. But if you're using them outdoors and you're just sort of bringing up levels or lighting a street with it, you don't need to be that precise, essentially, with color. Right. So you probably still use HMIs, imagine, the big ones.
I do, yeah. I mean, we'll still have HMIs. I got a job coming up, and the house has 30 windows. So we'll definitely have 12 by 12, clay coats out there for bounces or full grids to push through. I'll still have Fresnels and mixed Fresnels and PARs.
And sometimes that's a budget thing, too, because if you have those fixtures already, the rental houses might be able to rent them at less rental rates than if you were to get the new stuff. You don't necessarily need new stuff, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, cost, as you know, comes down to it as well. Yeah. Finding a balance on what the budget allows. I still use a lot of tungsten at night in the depth.
Right.
Just because you don't need it around camera, you don't need that full spectrum. And you can obviously still gel it, that still exists, but, just to help expose something deep and maybe darker in the background. And it's a lot cheaper, so I can get 5 to 8 or whatever the quantity is, whether it be 12 lights or 20Ks, 12Ks, whatever.
Yeah, you can get a truck full of park ends for almost nothing,
Yeah.
and they're invaluable in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That you can put them anywhere and they do exactly what you want.
And tungsten's beautiful. We all know it. And I love LED because of all the things we said, battery operated, quick, full color spectrum around camera, control from the console. But tungsten is tungsten. And I still think in our world, it's the cleanest color and the most beautiful on skin tones. And the Bob Dylan movie and the Bruce Springsteen movie I just did, we used a lot of traditional tungsten, for cost reasons, but also just because it looked great. Yeah. And we did a lot of theatrical looks with it. Mole Richardson Baby 407 still looks great on skin, you know, and Parkans still do what they're supposed to do. And you can get 600 of them and it's not going to break the bank.
Exactly. We've had these long Zoom conversations on the ICLS about color, you know, and how to control it and what to do with it. These aren't conversations we had before LED. Like we talked about trying to find the right color temp with gels on HMIs,
Right.
and you know how far you could dim a tungsten before it went too
Before you
orange.
go too warm, right?
But that was it, and like we never had to worry about color temperature as a gaffer, except that we knew we had daylight and we had tungsten.
Yeah.
And you had, you know, Kinoflow with some other options in there.
Yeah, some correction for magenta and green.
Sure.
You know, cool white. If you were trying to do a cool white thing, if you didn't put cool whites, you'd throw some green on them to kind of get up to that, you know, to mimic that color. No, I agree. I mean, it used to just be a whole cart full of gel.
Yeah.
And, you know, and pre-cuts. And you just, whatever size unit you had, you'd throw it on and warm it up.
The reason you're in LA right now is for the ASC Awards.
Yes.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
A Complete Unknown has been nominated for Faden, and it's a big honor, I know, for everybody. So congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
It's great for you to come out. How's that relationship start? How's that relationship with Faden and ultimately with James Mangold, because the two of them are a unit?
Yes.
How does that process start?
So I met Faden. I get a phone call from Mike Bauman, and he asked if I have some availability at the end of 2022, I think, to do this small little movie. Faden's in town in New Jersey, and it's called Daddy-O. So, of course, I know who Faden is, and I love Ford versus Ferrari and all his other projects. I said, yeah, let me take the phone call, see if we can make it work. So I talked to Faden, and he offers me the job. And he's like, it's a little tier 1, right? So it's a small movie, 2 people in a taxi cab, and we're going to do a little mini volume and some stuff. So I meet Faden, come into the office on the first day, and we just have a little meet and greet, right? And tonally talk about the movie and technologically dial in the LED wall idea, getting to know each other, small talk. And I said, you must be exhausted. You guys just finished Indiana Jones reshoots. Now you're doing this. Like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of break. I said, what do you have anything coming up afterwards? And he says, we have this Bob Dylan movie with James Mangold. And I was like, where's it shooting? Like, genuinely curious. And he's like, right here in New Jersey. And I there was a moment, I tell the story a lot. There was a moment where I go, do I sell myself?
Right.
Or do I just kind of play this cool? And I said, you know what? No guts, no glory. And I said, you need a gaffer? And he goes, well, what do you think this is? This is an interview. And I said, okay.
Right.
And that's kind of like my introduction to Faden. Clearly, Daddy-O went well. And then when Dylan came around, he offered me officially offered me the job. And then the writer's strike jammed it up a little bit. But ultimately, that was the start of our relationship. And I get along great with him. And I think we have the same ideas at the same time. And I could see his vision.
Yeah.
And Jim's vision as well. And I'm able to navigate that and deliver.
Yeah, well, he's so passionate about.
Yes, you have to have passion if you're going to work with those gentlemen.
He's so passionate about the image and the context,
Yes.
and the feeling, the vibe in the room, and so creating a bond with him like that has got to be.
He's a true filmmaker.
He really is.
I mean, he directs as well, and I think what I really liked about him is he understands that everything makes this. He understands that it takes a village, and everything makes this project. It's not just the cinematography, the lighting, and we all have to work in harmony. And he gets that, and he is passionate about it. So you better be passionate too. And everything affects us. Is kind of like it felt like the theme of the Dylan movie. Like if you're not delivering on that job, then it could affect me lighting wise. Like it's like to make a perfect movie, everybody has to bring their A game, and that's what those gentlemen expect out of you, and that's what that movie was. Us working our tail off, to deliver.
They'll call you out, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
They will let you know if you are not up to snuff.
Yeah, you do Daddy-O, and that's a cool movie.
It was cool,
cool
yeah.
little movie. But really, this A Complete Unknown is a dream movie for 1 million people, 1 million gaffers in this world.
Yes.
Would love to have been able to
Yes.
do that, and myself included. Like, the idea when I heard that movie was being made, I was like, oh my God.
It was a dream for me too. I mean, I respect both of their work so much, and to then do a movie with them about Bob Dylan, who is iconic. And you know what? And what's great about these movies for the viewing public is, I'm 43. I didn't grow up in a house that really listened to Bob Dylan. Like my family was like Beatles and Rolling Stones, and they were into disco and stuff like that. So I didn't really know his catalog. And you start listening to it, you realize this man in like 6 years wrote so many songs that we've all heard, whether they've been sold to commercials or they've been in movies or other people have recovered them. Yeah. That I didn't realize that like Johnny Cash, certain songs, I love the Johnny Cash, which is a Jim Mangold Walk the Line thing. Right. When I learned about him, they were Bob songs, that he was basically, folk music would beg, borrow, and kind of, everybody would use each other's stuff. So I thought that was interesting where you have this movie about this icon and it's now kind of pulling the veil off of another generation that maybe didn't grow up with it.
But you also look at someone like Hendrix and, we could go into the Bob Dylan catalog for forever. So you get this iconic movie and you get this opportunity, but you also have to stick to a feel. Like the film itself won't lend itself to extravaganza.
Right.
How do you work with Faden to make this film beautiful and simple and elegant the way it is?
The thing we stressed in prep, we were going for real. We built very little sets. Outside of the apartment and a couple of hotel rooms, everything was truly shot on location. So they wanted that real feel. They wanted that real energy. We shot in New Jersey, Hoboken, faking for the West Village, and production design and set deck did a great job of recreating McDougal Street, to create that energy, letting real traffic go deep in the background. So you had that depth instead of just being like maybe in a sleepier town that you could do more, but you kind of have to now build in that depth. So like deep in the background, cars out of focus were current day cars, but didn't matter because they were dark and they were just headlights moving. Simple. I think you said it. Like it was simple and not stylized, and we weren't trying to give backlights where maybe there wouldn't be a backlight. And if you saw a backlight, most likely it was either we hung a light or we brought in our own street lights everywhere. Set deck had I think we rewired up like a dozen street lights. So they had 2K bulbs in them, and that we just kind of play with the dim just to find a little bit of warmth. We didn't want like real sodium, but we wanted that warm feel. That Kodachrome really was a lot of the stuff we looked at it from that period, though he showed to me. And I took my cues from there, just like real, and not heavily stylized. And the few shots that are kind of performances, big backlights, spotlights from the balconies, the infamous shot that Faden found of Bob and Joan. They had these like low crossing spots, whatever theater they were in. So that's like the opening shot of that scene, the two of them. And we loved the way it looked from the master so much that we just lived with it. We turned off everything else except for a few house sconces.
Right, just for some depth.
Yeah, and just lived in these like two low crossing, keys. And then Scott Sakamoto, the great Scott Sakamoto, just doing his thing, coming around and steady camming and finding all those angles as they have their little moment on stage. And that's like the most stylized we got.
A highly photographed individual for 60 years.
Yeah.
Documented history of his performances and his life almost more than any other rock star yet.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And so you're not bound to those things, but you find, like you guys did an amazing job of catching the essence of those pieces without necessarily being bound to the technical end.
This movie's kind of been, curse is not the right word, but it was supposed to be shot in 19 and then COVID hits. And I guess Timmy goes on to do Dune, and then Jim and Faden do Indiana Jones. So it kind of kicks the can down the road, and it allows Timmy to perfect his Bob, and it allows Jim and the production designer, Francois, and whoever else is attached to keep kind of cultivating this, the information and the energy, the essence of it. And then finally, when we get to it, we had this like huge book of reference photos and videos and stuff that like I was doing on my own, but Art's like, oh no, we have it already here, and they just like, it was like pages and pages of digital PDF pages, and I would just comb through it and look at it and just get on board with them, which I thought was very important because it does have an essence, and Jim and Faden and Francois really had an idea of how they wanted this movie to look, and so then it was my job just to like help deliver it.
That stylization, even though it was simple, was really the key part of that visual look of the film, was that you captured that and you got it. But it was, I felt like it was a really stylized film, and it had to be. I think that was what the great part about the way it looked.
Faden did a great job in camera with the LUT. He building this LUT that, kind of really gave him that look that he wanted. that warmth and that feel. We shot on the Venice 2, so obviously you could crank that thing up to 12,000, and it really has no noise. And he did a lot of testing, playing with the ASA and stuff, and where it kind of starts to fall apart, and it didn't.
Right.
And then, through the LUT, he built in a little bit of noise, and then I think he did a film out and then rescan back in. So that kind of gave it that texture that they wanted.
Right.
That camera's impressive to talk about it a little bit. I mean, we did lighting. We there's some interviews out there saying maybe we didn't do but we did some lighting, but it is really just kind of controlling and manipulating your environment of what you can't, what's around you.
Yeah. And
at 12,000 ASA, it allows you to not need bigger, broader fill sources, as much. So on top of not having the room to have big soft boxes or lifts everywhere, because in Hoboken they haven't sunk their infrastructure, so there's power lines and data lines everywhere. So you can't just put anything you want wherever for a lot of those city, New York City fake streets. So you had to be very particular. Like you'd be forced. Like, I don't really want it there, but if I have to get an aerial lift, it's only going there because the lines. And so yeah, we just tried to light the space and allow Timmy just to live in it.
Right.
And feel like it was, 1961 through 1965,
right.
New York.
But you made mention that he spent a lot of time on set.
Yeah.
That Tim Chalamet spent a lot of time on set.
Yeah.
Supposedly just being in that space, and absorbing.
Especially his apartment. So I guess there was some pretty decent photographs of his apartment he's done through the years that he lived in. So we built his apartment almost to spec, probably. So when we were on that set, because it was his, Timmy didn't really like leaving. So he'd always have the guitar. He'd be in a corner, whether it be on his little couch or the bed or wherever the scene might kind of being. And he would just be like playing the riff on his guitar, and he didn't leave, which is great in one respect and kind of like terrifying for the lamp op that might have to hang a light over his head. But, it was good because then we were actually seeing how the lights that we were building for that scene were actually playing on him in that moment. And then sometimes we'd run it once or twice, kind of like almost like a shoot the rehearsal, and then be like, hey, I think we need, maybe we need a little bit of fill just because of the direction. And we maybe add a tube or a Roscoe dash or a light mat, or, kind of move a practical around. They kind of find how they want the scene to play, Fade and Jim and then Timmy too. But our goal in those moments was just to give him his space and let him feel like we weren't there.
Essentially what they're coming to see is him and not our lighting. But
No.
But you only use 2 lights on the show.
Just 2.
Just 2.
2 Roscoe dashes and a DMX it. Nice. You would never know.
You would never know. You go from one musician movie to another musician movie.
Yes.
And another fascinating character, sort of
Mr. New Jersey.
The bread and butter of New Jersey.
Yes.
But that's a different team with a different DP, Massa, who I've known for a long, long time and I adore. And with Scott Cooper, who is firmly entrenched in music. And,
yes.
He's been invested in that world as well. So how does the Bruce Springsteen movie come to you?
So the Bruce Springsteen movie came to me through Kevin Lowry, who's a key grip in New York. Massa has used him on a couple of things, and I think Massa called Billy O'Leary first because he's done a couple of projects with him, but Billy wasn't available. And then he called Kevin and said, hey, do you know of anyone you would recommend for gaffing? And Kevin gave him my name.
Nice.
And he called me up, and we interviewed and we got along, and I said, yeah, I'm very interested in this project. We've heard about it for same studio as the Bob Dylan, so we heard it was kicking around. I said, I'd love to do it if you'd love to have me. So that got our relationship started. And Moss is a fantastic human being, and it was great because he's a huge Dodger fan and I'm a Yankee fan.
Right.
And as fate had it, they played in the World Series, so dealing with him, taunting me as his LA Dodgers won was added an extra layer to the day.
Yeah.
But it was all good fun, and it kind of added to our relationship. Sometimes it takes a couple of jobs if you're lucky to work with the same cinematographer to kind of really personally figure them out, and they let you in right away. Like Moss and I kind of just like realized that we had a good friendship on top of a good working relationship. It made it a lot more rewarding.
I did a movie with him in Pittsburgh, and the key grip was John Janicek. who's from Pittsburgh.
Right.
And I'm a Detroit guy, and Detroit and Pittsburgh ended up in
I
the
was gonna say,
Stanley
they don't-
Cup Finals. Ooh, I would wear my red sweater.
Sure.
We were doing these stadium shots, and they were throwing stuff at me. It was,
Yeah, there was a lot of Yankee hats, and he had his Dodgers hats, of
Yeah.
course. And Scott Cooper was a Dodgers fan, so
Yeah.
you know the day that it officially was it ended for the Yankees. We were funny. We're shooting in this house. It's Bruce's childhood home, and the Yankees have the lead, and we are mostly on the first floor, and it looks like they're going to claw away at another win.
yeah.
And make it a series. And so then we go upstairs, and it's an old house, so it's like super small and rickety. And we go upstairs and we shoot the scene, right? And we're done. And by the time we came down the stairs for wrap, the game was tied.
Wow.
And I was like, what the hell just happened? Like we went upstairs and now we came down, and then eventually, the Dodgers won. But Massa would text me every night and be like, one more win, two more wins.
Yeah.
So then finally that night, he was just like, he got to his apartment or whatever he had, and he was like, "Oh, good series." I was just like, I don't want to talk about it. It's those moments where you get to know a person professionally and personally, and that make this job really rewarding.
Yeah.
Because I do think this, like getting to know people, is why I truly love this business. Right. And I love the technical side. I love the lighting. I love cinematography and the whole process of it all. But really meeting people from different walks of life and different experiences and different ages and different ethnicities, and it's really interesting to me, and it's never boring.
Every day is a prototype.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's partially what's interesting too about the ICLS.
Yes.
As a group of people that do this for a living.
Globally.
Globally as gaffers, 500 members or so
Yeah.
now from
Yeah.
40 countries and 5 continents.
And I'm blessed to be in it. People ask me, like, is it worth it to apply? And I said, I think so. Networking is key. I mean,
Right.
No one's getting you the work, so you have to be good at it, but you also have to be passionate about it and sell yourself and network yourself. And I think with the ICLS, it's afforded me the opportunity to meet people like yourself and gaffers from all over and develop a relationship, and then have a network of people you can lean on if you're having trouble, or
Right.
references. Like, hey, you can call me up and say, hey, I'm working with this gentleman or this lady, and what is your experiences? And I could tell you, like, hey, blah blah blah, and
Watch out for this.
watch out for this, or
yeah.
they like this, or like, you're going to be great, and same vice versa. And I owe a lot to the ICLS to helping me get to where I am today, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's it's that extension of those relationships.
For sure.
Martin's coming in next.
Right.
And
Love Martin.
I've met Martin since, but we met 5 years ago. He's still in the same movie.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That's crazy. Yeah, I met Martin in Cinegear Atlanta, and combination of the ICLS Zooms, and obviously social media is huge in getting to know people and feeling like you're connected.
Right.
And then when we met in Atlanta, you would have thought we were like long lost brothers,
Exactly.
the way we embraced each other.
Yeah.
And we had a great weekend, and I still talk to him, and
Yeah.
we'll see him this weekend. And to those who founded it, thank you.
Yeah.
As a young up and coming gaffer, it allowed me a wider network, both to lean on technically and personally. And, I'm forever grateful for it, for sure.
Before we sort of sign off, do you have any interesting anecdotes from your career that you find really interesting? Those challenging moments where like something got thrown at you, or something sort of funny or quirky happened that sticks in your brain?
I would say that I thought the festival in the Complete Unknown went really well. We're in a park in the middle of nowhere. Fade and I didn't really believe that it needed like a big soft top bay. That was probably one of the few locations we actually had one for sun control, but we didn't really want it for like nighttime. So I worked really hard with art department in procuring 8 like construction crank up lights, and my offset team rewired them for tungsten. So they basically ultimately were 8Ks, 8K floodlights, 2K had control of it. And I mapped it out and placed them where I thought it would be the most beneficial. And then just working with art, like Faden gave me a lot of leash to kind of understanding what he was looking for, and then to work with art to deliver a set that can be photographed at any angle without having, we got to move this, because it was a very tricky location. We didn't have a lot of wiggle room on the perimeter to put stuff. So we had a couple of lift positions behind the stage, And then we had some stuff in the distance for trees just to like help exposure, but ultimately it was all built in. So I'm very proud of that in the sense that he afforded me the opportunity to kind of take lead on it and work with, art department. And then Daddy-O, I think, was very challenging because it was two people in a car and it never changed. And it was low budget, so even though we had LED walls and some interactive lighting from the video, we ended up having a lot of lighting around the car on stands, whether it be, Vortex 8 chimeras, we had Titan tubes, we had Felix Q8s as like backlights, and we had our traditional board, but Faden likes, control. So we had 2 DMXs, so 24 channels, all color coded, and we made nice, P-touch symbols and matching video organically. Right. So I'm like, shooting 2 cameras in a cab with 2 people for 9 pages of dialogue, and just like, oh, here comes a car, I'm going to give it a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And having like, instead of tubes changing colors, we'd have 3 tubes on top of each other, each set with a color. So this car has an amber like work light, so we're going to like fling that up. So it was almost like live mixing.
Right.
So not that was challenging, but you're matching it to real live video, doing it, 12 hours a day, and having to be on point because you just have to keep repeating it over and over again versus building a cue and hitting a button. So I'm also proud of that because, Faden expects the best, and I want to deliver the best.
Sure.
So to do that, like next to shoulder with him, like, all right, here comes the car, raise the backlights. Oh, it's too bright. No, blow it down. Okay.
Right.
And like just live mixing, like busking almost like for that whole entire movie.
Yeah. It's a bit of a dance. It's you really get to.
And then we find the rhythm, and it's not as hard, but you can't take a break. So I think that was why it felt so challenging. There was no like, all right, we set 30 lights and we're exhausted, but now we can sit back and reap watch the rewards. And in this case, it was like constant. So I felt that was pretty challenging.
Nice.
What was your favorite sort of old school traditional fixture? I said 407 Baby.
Yeah, we used a lot of those on Dylan.
Yeah.
For the
You guys use a lot of 407s on.
Yeah, because it had to be on camera.
Right.
We was once again it was on the Bob Dylan movie, we were all location for the most part. We built his apartment and some other hotel sets, but all those concert things were on location. So low ceilings, lights had to be visible, when we were coming around, and we knew they exist because he's on a stage. So it's not like you had to hide it. So I worked with the art department, and we went through a bunch of different looks to make sure everybody was okay. And we found some period park cans and period kind of like, Licos and stuff like that. Right. But they just weren't really doing what I thought we wanted them to do. So I said, hey, these are old Mole Richardson 407 babies. Do you guys aesthetically like the look of them on camera? And everyone agreed. Right. And I knew they worked. And they were sitting on a shelf, probably about 1,000 of them. So I can get them real cheap. And then that's how we built a lot of the lighting for the exterior concert and the finale and all the interior clubs. So they were able to be photographed, and they were maroon, so they didn't stick out, or catch any other light and kind of, glimmer.
So tell those rental houses, don't throw away those lights just yet.
Don't throw away your tungsten. It's coming back. I'm bringing it back.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do period music pictures, and I'll only use tungsten.
Yeah. You will get from 50 to 91, and that's it.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite old school fixture? Like if you had one that you could have on every show, and the one that you would lean on the most, what would it be?
I love a 5K.
Yeah.
I was going to say the 5K with a medium or large chimera bank.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's a great light. It's a perfect light. I mean, it's bright enough for almost most applications. Right. You could throw a chimera bag on, and like back in the day, you could bounce it, you could push it direct.
Yeah.
It's not too big, so you don't have to really worry about it consuming too much of the room. I would say my favorite traditional lighting fixture would be a 5K.
With a chimera, though.
With a chimera.
Yeah, for me, it's probably a 20K, but I know what you mean about the 5K.
Yeah.
Like
20K is great. I just used a bunch in the Bruce movie.
Yeah.
We had lifts in the background. They needed to travel a couple of city blocks that, just a sky panel or even the X-23s just wouldn't, reach.
Yeah.
and we threw our sodium cocktail gel on it because we wanted to have a sodium feel. And
I love everybody's mix of sodium.
651 high sodium. I like it. I think it looks good, and I don't think it's that egregious on the skin either if it catches. But on this one, we just kind of tested a couple of different ones. I forget what we landed. It was like probably half and some green. And
Right. Yeah, a little quart of green.
yeah, a little coat of green and half CTO.
You talked a little bit about how you came up, but who are the people that made the impact on you? Who are the gaffers or DPs that really influenced you as a young person pushing to where you are now?
There's three main gaffers when I was coming up that did the most for my career. Would start with Andy Day. He's the one I met first, and he took a real liking to me, and his crew was great at the time, and immediately saw something in me that maybe I didn't see in myself yet, and made it his business to keep me around. And then, kind of pushed me to say, hey, join the union, join the local 52, and always found a way to carve in a spot until I got in, and then I was part of the core crew. And then if he wasn't working, or if he took a job out of town, I met John Velez, who was also a great mentor of mine. And John did a lot for my career because John is so technically good.
Yeah.
And he was always great at having lights or finding technologies that maybe we weren't using in New York, and how do we apply it. And even if, whether it worked or didn't matter. It was just like he was always searching. And I think he put that in my brain that, you have these tools, but there's always more tools. And our job is to how do we be better and more efficient,
right.
As technology grows. Once again, saw something in me and asked me what I wanted out of my career. His best boy, Ryan Rodriguez, is now my rigging gaffer. So we kind of created this little ecosystem family, and we just try to work through it. And then Charlie Grubbs is a big one for me. He was Andy's rigging gaffer when I joined the crew. And then Charlie had the opportunity to step out and be the main shooting gaffer. And at that point, he knew I kind of was figuring out where I fit in and belonged. And I tried my hand at programming, and I wasn't very good. So he's like, hey, do you want to be my best boy? And he gave me that opportunity. And he's also the gentleman that said, I think you have a skill set that you're not utilizing, which is, create the creative side of you. And I think, you should gaff. And if we don't have a job, try to find your own work. Right. So he instilled that in me, that I could be more. And then gave me the opportunity by doing tandems or covering him if he scouted on a job. And then meeting DPs and how to talk to DPs and how to talk to directors. And, without him, I would not have that repetition at a low stress level, And then I gained that confidence in myself. So I owe a lot to those three gentlemen, for sure.
How are you passing that on now? How are you passing that on with your crew and young people that are coming into your scope?
I try to talk to anyone who has any questions. I try to get involved as much, through the union has some like young technicians programs. I try to gain an understanding of where my crew sees themselves going, if thirding or data tech, or if the programmer wants, what do you want out of this career if you so choose it? And how could I help you? I have a couple of guys in my crew who definitely want to gaff more and bigger things. So I'm always on putting them up for jobs if I get called and I'm booked, or if it doesn't, fit the time requirement, I give them their names and at least get through the interviewing. Because I think that's an important thing too in any job, but especially ours, because it's so network based on how do we respond. I know you know what you're doing, and you might know I know what I'm doing, but it's how do we do this for 12 to 14 hours a day, X amount of weeks. So I tell them, if they call you, even if they're not going to pick you, take the interview, talk to the cinematographer. Your name is circling out there, and you're getting repetition that way. And then one day you'll just land one, and then, sayonara.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, get them to say your name. That's what I tell a lot of young people too. Like, it doesn't matter, like you said, if you get the job or not.
Right.
You just need them to say your name and ask questions about I don't know this person. What have they done? And then they do a little research. And
someone I meet, and they're like, oh, what do you do for a living? And I tell them what I do. And they're like, oh, you're in the union. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, so they get you the work? And I'm like, no. Mm-mm. I'm like, you have to understand I'm like, think of me like a contractor, right? Like I'm a carpenter that owns my own business. Like the only way I get good work is through word of mouth by doing a good job and then references. And ultimately, that's what our business is.
It's relationships.
Yeah, it's relationships, it's networking, it's knowing somebody and working hard to back that name up. So I always tell the young people, like, just work hard, network as best as you can, you know, and from my crew, the people who've been with me, if you want more than what we're currently set up to do, then I will help you try to get work. You know?
Right. But that's a confidence thing on your end too. You have to be confident enough in your abilities and yourself that you're not afraid to help bring other people up.
Yeah, I mean, I think was the saying, "All rising tides lift all boats." Like, I don't want to suppress anybody because I wasn't suppressed. So how rude of me would that be? Right. And I feel confident that between, you know, my team that is in the positions they want to be, you know, my best boy Julian, you know, Ryan, my rigging gaffer, like, you know, Michael Hill's my programmer, like these are guys that are in their positions they want to be in. So everybody else, like, I don't want to suppress them. If they want to be gaffers or best boys, like, I'll help you link up with, if you want to be a best boy, I'll help you link up with a gaffer. Like, you know, and because that's what was done to me. I was given an opportunity. Right. And, you know, I took it. And I don't want to ever, you know, selfishly, I'd love everyone that I think is amazing to stay with us. But, you know, you have to give people an opportunity to go make their own path.
John, amazing to have you here. Congratulations to Faden and to you on the nomination for the ESC award. I don't want to bag on anybody else's, but I think you guys might have a pretty good shot on this one.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing what you're doing, and I hope that these movies continue to grow for you, and that, you know, that you're doing the things you want to do, because what you're doing now is amazing. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all
Pleasure.
the support
Yes.
over the years.
Oh my God.
Great job. You guys are
More to come.
professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that wraps up an incredible conversation with John Alcantara. From mastering the logistics of lighting on the streets of New York to working with the biggest names in film, he's proving that experience, hustle, and problem solving are the tools that create amazing gaffers. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the world of filmmaking. Thanks for tuning into Lamp Doc. We'll catch you next time.